Hi everyone! The purpose of this video is to help you think about your upcoming assignment where you will facilitate a theory or principle from class in your next class with your peers. So to give you an idea of this, I'm going to walk you through a short facilitation. Now remember, as you facilitate, your goal is to help your audience better learn or understand one of the theories or principles you've learned so far this semester. You can choose anything that we've covered so far in the course. As you talk, we also want you to remember your 3 things to do as a facilitator. The first being to relay the theory or principle with accuracy as you teach. The second is to use a story to engage your audience and better relate. And the third is to get your audience to be actively participating along with your facilitation. So I hope you enjoyed the short little example of the facilitation. Again, in your assignment, you are welcome to choose any or theory and principle that we've covered so far this semester. Today, I want to use conflict styles for my facilitation. So when we think about conflict styles, this is an important thing in considering our own personal engagement when we're in conflict. We all have a different style that we take on. Now, according to this chart, there's 2 different scales that we can use when we are engaged in conflict and determining what our conflict style is. So the first thing we're going to consider is our assertiveness. The second thing we're going to consider is our cooperativeness. My church calling right now is to serve in the young women's, and I work with the 11 to 12-year-olds. And each Young Women's Week on Sunday, we have a short council in which we plan upcoming events. Now, a few weeks ago, the girls suggested in this council to have an activity where we did a sushi making night. Now, as I give you some examples of the different girls' responses, I want you to consider their assertive and cooperative levels because this suggestion created a conflict amongst the girls of some being for the sushi night, some not wanting to do it. Now, the first young woman became very, very quiet once it was suggested and didn't really give any sort of ideas as to how she felt about doing a sushi making night or whether she was for or against it. She didn't really share any ideas. Another one of the young women was very vocal about, I don't want to do a sushi night. I think sushi is gross. We all like ice cream. Let's do something that everybody likes instead. Another one of the young women was very excited to do the sushi making night, and she explained how she has mats to help roll out the sushi and that she would be happy to help girls come up with ideas of what they could do if they didn't like the raw fish idea, right? Maybe we could bring in Spam, maybe we could make musubi instead, and had a lot of ideas of how we could still make sushi and do other things for girls who didn't like traditional sushi. And then another one of the young women was very, I don't really care what we do. I'm happy just to come. If you want me to bring stuff for sushi, I'm happy to bring stuff for sushi. Now, as we think about the conflict styles, let's go through the different examples. Now, the first young woman who didn't really want to engage in the discussion, where would you rate her on a level of assertiveness, high or low? Okay, if you're thinking low, you're correct. What about cooperation, high or low cooperation? Low cooperation. So we would place her right here as a conflict avoider. And as we think about this style of conflict engagement is one where we're not willing to express our ideas. We're also not willing to cooperate in the conversation. So the second young woman, where would you put her on an assertive level, high or low? Probably high. Now, cooperation might be a little tricky. I would put her on a low cooperation level because she wasn't really willing to listen to other ideas, right? She wanted to do ice cream. That was the idea that she wanted to move forward with. Now, the next young woman, where would you put her on an assertive level, high or low? Probably high. What about on a cooperation level, high or low? Probably high. She's what we call a conflict collaborator. Now, the last young woman who was just happy to kind of go along with anything but didn't really want to share her opinion, that's something we call conflict accommodation, right? We've got a high cooperativeness level but a low assertive level. Now, as we think about these different young women and as we think about that story, I hope that it invited you to think about what you might have done in that situation. So I want you to take a second and think of, if we suggested a sushi making activity for class, how would you feel about it? Would you be willing to vocalize either for or against? If it wasn't something you wanted to do, or if it's something you was, would you be willing to have a conversation with those around you and coming up with an event that would meet the needs and be a good experience for everyone? Now, when we think about conflict styles, this is a really, really great tool in considering our own conflict engagement, whether we avoid conflict and have tendencies to not share our thoughts or feelings, whether we are conflict competitors and feel really comfortable sharing our ideas, but sometimes have a harder time cooperating with others, whether we're collaborators and have a tendency to put our time and energy into coming up with a solution that's best from everyone, or an accommodator who's happy to go along with the flow, but oftentimes isn't really great about vocalizing our own needs. Whatever our style is, understanding it better helps us understand how we engage in conflict. And just in finishing off from this story, it was really, really cool to see how the girls were able to invite a space of collaboration because they all had good relationships with each other, and they all were able to see each other as people. It led to a really cool council and discussion and making a decision that was right from everyone. This is going to be the end of this facilitation video. Again, thinking about in person as you prepare your own facilitation, things to share. Choose a theory or skill that you've learned this semester. Talk about it with accuracy. Find a way to share a story as a part of the facilitation, and find a way to engage your audience, even if it's asking them simple questions rather than just telling them everything up front. So good luck as you prepare your facilitations. We'll see you in class to facilitate.